This is my new neighborhood. I have what could be the worst house in the neighborhood, but that's okay. Because even the worst house in this neighborhood is better than the best house in some neighborhoods. But you're really paying for the neighborhood. You're not really paying for the house. This is it. This is a 1954 brick-faced ranch with attached garage and breezeway. And today I just closed this morning, and I've been spending the past couple hours just sort of looking around, and well, let's take a look at what I found. It's hard to believe that it's been over a year since that video was made. So this is going to be kind of an update video. And we're going to talk about all the stuff that's been changed and repaired and modified and upgraded. And we'll start off with the exterior. So here we are, 1 year later. So off the bat, you'll notice, starting from the immediate right side, we've got new shutters. So one of the major projects I had to undertake this summer was to take all the windows and replace all the glazing compound, replace some glass, took the aluminum storm windows apart, cleaned them, and repaired them as needed. And over here we've got the jalousie windows. They've all been repaired. They need to be cleaned again, but they have been repaired. All the missing glass has been replaced, all missing hardware replaced. And I do need to clean the gutters, but the roof has all been replaced. Both sections. The chimney's been reflashed with lead. And I applied an elastomer cap saver on top of it, which is it's a brushable crown saver material. New garage door. That's probably the first thing you probably notice. New garage door with a keypad, exterior keypad. New light fixture. Let's take a walk inside. So let's go into the breezeway. This is the focal point of the whole home, and it's adorned with busted ass jalousie windows, all of them missing cranks and missing some glass panels. So the crank boxes are all busted up. Wonderful. Oh, this one is still intact, but I don't think does it work? I don't know. I don't have a crank. More the leverage to crank it. But we've got a lot of missing glass slats. Now, temporarily, I'm going to repair these for insurance purposes. When the insurance company comes in for their inspection, if they find any broken windows or breaches or anything, they'll demand that it be fixed. You'll also notice that I've repainted the door and the slab edge to match. Installed a lighted doorbell button. Now the breezeway has undergone significant changes in appearance because it was in pretty rough shape. The ceiling was peeling white paint all across the board. It was probably 3 or 4 layers of paint on that. And the exterior walls, which are actually the original siding, they were just plain, I think they were a matte white finish. So I repainted the walls. I scraped the ceiling all the way down to bare wood and repainted that. I scraped up all the paint on the floor and I applied a nice epoxy finish, which is holding it quite nicely. And this is the kind that you throw the chips into. It's a little dirty, but this is kind of this is not an airtight room, so it's, you know, when the wind blows, it blows through the room, even with these jalousies closed. Unfortunately, they don't seal out the weather very nicely, but this makes for a great 3-season porch. We've got our freezer out here, and added a pendant lamp, which runs off of that outlet, which is switched in the kitchen. That outlet wasn't working, so I had to replace it. Actually replaced every single, just as a precursor, I replaced every single light fixture, every single outlet, and every single switch in the entire house. And I've added a lot of outlets as well, here and there, or a couple of them here and there. I built this nice step here. This is made of an oak plank, which has been screwed to a wooden base, painted to match, repainted the door sill, or the threshold, replaced. Another thing I've done is any brass hardware I've replaced with brushed nickel, and all the doorknobs and deadbolts, which it had no deadbolts when I bought it, but I have deadbolts in every exterior door now, and they've all been done in a brushed nickel finish. This door did not get repainted, but I did clean it. I did not repaint this door, but this one I did, and I probably should have scraped it, but I didn't. I just painted it. So, and it's locked. Here's the garage door. This is where Miata's going to live. And I haven't really gone through this stuff yet. This is all stuff that was left behind by the previous owner. This is a one-owner house. It was purchased brand new in 1954 by the Smith family. Helen and Theodore Smith purchased this house in 1954, had it built and everything. The reason I got the house so cheap was because it does need a lot of work, but stuff that I can handle. For example, this garage door doesn't work anymore. I need to fix it. I just discovered, though, that the electric door opener does work. Now, this remote, look at this remote. When's the last time you saw one of these? I don't think this works anymore, but the door does. If I hit the open button here, so that actually functions. But the tracks are shithouse, and the door doesn't work. So I have to figure that out, at least on a temporary basis, so I can get my car in and out of here. But enough of that. Let's look at this wiring. So the whole house has the original wiring, and this is what they used. It's ungrounded. It is copper. It's not aluminum, but it's all ungrounded. And I'm going to have to rewire, well, the entire friggin' house. But I can do that a little at a time. I don't have to do it all at once. But I will be running new wiring where possible. And there's a lot of these cheap-ass extension cords. I mean, but you know what? For what I paid for this house, I don't really care. Let's check out the garage 1 year later. Here we are. Now the garage, if you recall, it was pretty barren. There was no lofting. It had a broken door. It had a 1970s garage door opener. We now have a 2019 garage door opener with a modern remote. This is a Chamberlain belt drive unit, and for the door I went with an Amar. It's a steel sandwich style door. It's basically a steel exterior and interior skin with a foam insulation in the middle. The insulation helps make the door run quieter. I completely rewired the garage starting at this point here. I ran a dedicated 12 amp dedicated 20 amp line all the way to the panel, which powers a few outlets in the garage. And then I also ran a separate 15 amp circuit to power the lighting in the garage as well as the breezeway. So that's all new now. Mounted the garage door opener button right here on the wall in a proper box like it's supposed to be done. I also took all the wiring that was on the surface and I routed it through the cavity. This way, if I decide to drywall this wall, which I will do, it will be insulated and drywalled at some point in the future. I can do that. I don't have to worry about rerouting any wiring. I went with stainless steel outlet covers in the garage and the kitchen. That wire that powers the exterior light had to be replaced all the way back into the attic because it was kind of crunchy. Built this beautiful loft, which is only half the size right now, but I had to get this section done so I could put the door in. It was kind of a twofer project. I had to do both at the same time. So in the future, I will add the rest of it. I'm going to build this out more for more storage. That's the garage, guys. The shelving, I kept the original brackets, but I replaced the wood with pine so it doesn't warp. When you're putting in shelves, it's best to avoid particle board shelving because it never lasts. It always warps. And, yeah, so that's why I use pine, because it'll never warp. Added some lighting. So I added a light fixture here. This is an LED light bar. And I added 2 ceiling mount light fixtures. The bare bulb fixtures are really temporary. I'm going to be putting something else in their place. I just needed to put a fixture in just so I could have light in here. And that's that. That's the garage. And ended up throwing away almost all the stuff that was left behind except for some garden tools, but the rest of it was really junk. And that's it. All right, moving on. Let's walk in here. So here's my kitchen. Original cabinets, original countertops, original sink. And I gotta fix this garbage disposal. The dishwasher is running and it's draining into here. So I gotta replumb all of this because it's all no good. Looks like that was done recently. The drain might be okay, but this dishwasher is one of those Harley Badger ones. Just kidding. For those of you who know who he is. Yeah, there's a clog in here somewhere, and the thing is seized up. Now, it's also connected to an ungrounded outlet. So that happened. But I'm gonna pull this out. I might just get a new one. I might just put in another one. I mean, why not? It's already set up for it. There's this thing here, this Hotpoint water flow switch. I've never seen one of those before, but I imagine it was the cat's meow back in 1954. I'm gonna have to cut. What I'm gonna do is all this copper. I'm gonna cut it down, and I'm gonna throw some PEX on there, and just replumb it all with PEX. I just think that'd be a lot easier to do. There is a grounded outlet here. That's for the dishwasher, which is kind of nice. I was kind of wondering about that, but everything else is ungrounded. Damn it! God damn it! Anyway, I got all the windows and ventilators open and on because the house smells like oil, and the furnace had been leaking for a while, and the house has been unoccupied and closed up for quite some time. So, I think a couple of years, in fact. So let's have a look at the kitchen 1 year later. And the first thing you're going to notice, I've added some cabinetry to this wall, and I've put in all new appliances. We'll talk about the appliances first, because that was the first thing that came about a day after I closed, or 2. For appliances, I went with basically a step above bottom grade Frigidaire, basically a complete appliance suite. I was able to get a package deal through Home Depot, and I also threw in a washer and dryer as well. I needed everything buying this house. I had a crappy old stove and a junk fridge, so I had to do something about that pretty early on. There's our cat Oreo. He's hiding stuff under our mat. Always a glutton for attention. And his brother Tommy is breaking the rules on the kitchen table, and I will spray him with water. Hold on a second. So for this wall, I added a dedicated 20 amp circuit which serves the microwave. This is more entertaining than anything I could ever produce. Anyway, dedicated 20 amp line which serves the microwave, and I did add an outlet off of that line for a small appliance, and it's all GFI rated and all that happy stuff. So for the cabinets, these are cash and carry shaker cabinets from Lowe's. And I've added some period correct hardware. This is a reproduction. This is what you can get at your local hardware store today. It's not an exact match for the originals, but it's close enough for the non-discerning eye. Now, one of the things I wanted to do was, of course, I planned on repainting these cabinets from the get-go. But I didn't want to do a color change because I actually like the warm white. I think it looks beautiful in this kitchen. It kind of warms the room up and makes it look less, sterile and cold. So it's also the same color that was used throughout the house for all windows, doors, and trim. So I decided that it would be better to just color match it. So I brought one of the drawers to Home Depot and they were able to color match it to a semi-gloss. They sold me one of their, I think it was Bear Marquee is what I used for. It was the highest quality paint they said they had. So it was color matched to a semi-gloss Bear Marquee. And they got the color right the first time. It was just a perfect match. In fact, I tested it with my girlfriend. I painted a section of this panel right here, and I said, okay, tell me where I painted, and she couldn't. She could not tell me. She pointed to a bunch of other spots, but she didn't point to the spot that I painted. That's how I knew the color was right. If she can't pick it out, nobody can. So I went ahead and I repainted all of these cabinets, give them a light sand, fresh coat of paint. I took all the original hinges and handles, and I cleaned them with citrus strip to get all dried up paint that was on them. And once I pulled them out of the citrus strip, they looked absolutely beautiful. I was going to replace the hinges because they still sell a hinge that matches this. It's a very common hinge. But I was looking at the new ones that they sold at Home Depot, and they just weren't anywhere near the quality of what was here. So I decided the best course of action was to just preserve what I had, and that was it, and I'm glad I did. The sink cleaned up very nicely. I used some rust dissolver. What am I using on this? It's Iron Out. And Iron Out took all the rust stains off of it, and it's maintained that pretty well. I did a new Kohler basket drain assembly. I added a soap dispenser and this is a Kohler garbage disposal flange. I had to replace the garbage disposal, actually day one I had to replace the garbage disposal because it was seized up and clogged. So I put in another Badger 5, and so far so good. This thing has held up pretty well. And most recently I added a pneumatic switch for the garbage disposal. There was a switch mounted on the inside here, which I felt was fairly unsafe because if you're kind of in a rush and you're washing dishes and you got to run the disposal, you got wet hands, you reach in there and you're shocked. And that's not a GFI, it's not a GFCI circuit, so I had to do something to fix that. So this is what I added. Now these can go pretty much anywhere. I looked at my options. I had an option of cutting a hole in the sink, which I didn't want to do, or cutting a hole in the countertop, which I also didn't want to do. So I put it right here in the front, and I could find nothing that says you can't do that. But so what it is a pneumatic switch is basically, or an air switch. This is a plunger, and when you press the button, it pumps air through a hose that goes to this module in the back. And the garbage disposal simply plugs into that module, and that plugs into the wall. And there you are. It's pretty cool stuff. These actually started out, I believe, in the jacuzzi industry, or the hot tub industry, because when you're wet in a hot tub, you can't be touching power switches to turn the jets on and off. So that's why those exist. Looks beautiful, brushed nickel like everything else I'm doing. The faucet I did not change yet, but I will be replacing it with a brushed nickel faucet when the time comes. I don't like chrome because it wears hard in the kitchen, it gets scratched. Brushed nickel is, it can take a beating and still look good. But I'm not changing the handle color or anything like that. Those are going to stay chrome. The floor is on the list of things to do. This is the original 9x9 tile floor. Won't get into the specifics of what it is, but those of you who know what I'm saying. I'm weighing different options of either pulling it out and putting a sheet of Luan down, and then putting a new tile floor on top. I'm gonna stick with a vinyl composite tile floor. I just haven't decided exactly what I'm gonna do yet. So I haven't touched this floor. I just clean it and wax it, and that's all I do with it now. So I haven't decided what's gonna happen to this floor just yet. I'm still working on that. Stay tuned. The paint color is sympathetic to the mid-50s. It was the color that the lady and I could compromise on. I wanted yellow. She wanted something else. So I wanted a yellow wall because I think yellow looks great in a kitchen like this. It brightens it up a little bit. But she wanted something more subtle. So this is like a sage green, and it's a semi-gloss I think I used on this wall. Yeah, it's a semi-gloss. And it does work well with the countertops, the floor color, and the curtains. Now the curtains are another thing. I found these in the attic shortly after I moved in. And I firmly believe that they are from the mid-50s as well. I believe that if you look at the color choices that were made in this kitchen when it was built, these curtains are an obvious shoe-in for those colors. So I believe these were picked out by the original owners shortly after they bought the house when it was new. And they were up for God knows how long, and then stored in the attic. And thank God I still have them, because you cannot buy curtains like this anymore. Nobody makes these. You just can't buy, you just can't find anything like this. I've looked, and sure enough, one of my viewers is gonna send me a source for these. But I have the whole set of curtains for the door and the windows. And you know what? I love them. They're gonna stay here as long as I can tolerate them, or as long as the lady of the house can tolerate them. She seems to be okay with it, so I guess we're good. The exhaust fan I have taken apart, cleaned. I painted the frame over. It was kind of rusty, so I repainted the frame, cleaned it up. I think I painted the blades too, and got it running nice and smooth now. And the light fixture, I took out the brass light fixture they had in here, and I put in a satin nickel or satin metal finish light fixture. I'm still looking for a good fluorescent round ceiling fixture, chrome. I'm still looking for one. I just haven't found one for a price I'm willing to pay. But I do want to put one of those in here. I think it needs it. It belongs here. But for now, this is a good one. I bought a contractor pack of these, and I replaced all the ceiling fixtures with these except for the master bedroom. Oh, and added a cat door to this basement door, because we have cats now, so they need to be able to access their litter box, which is in the basement, and I want to make sure they can get there. So the seller was able to clean up the oil leak, fixed the leak itself, and at least they agreed to do that much. Ceilings are nice and dry. This is the living room and the dining and living area. I'm going to get a dining room table for that area. I've got to get a new couch. I don't have a very nice couch. Hardwood throughout. And look at this. I've never seen, on forced hot air, I've never seen the vents on the walls like that. It must be a 50s thing. And now for the living room. So, living dining area. This room, I didn't really make many changes. All we did, I spent exactly 1 year ago to this day, I was scraping loose paint and plaster off the walls, and making repairs with drywall compound, and sanding and painting. And this room had some damage to the wall on this side from moisture. which I was able to easily repair. And then it happened again as a result of an accident with my aquarium. Some water had been leaking from the filter and got onto the wall through the paint, and I had to do it all over again. But this room, really not a lot of changes other than the addition of some furniture. We actually just bought this living room furniture. We bought a new couch and a new lift top table and a new TV stand. So we just literally a week ago had these delivered. The living room, you know, I did change the wall color to contrast it a little bit. I went with a two-tone gray, so we've got an accent wall there, and you can't really tell, can you? Well, the problem is I picked the wrong color chip, and I didn't realize it until after I put it on the wall that the colors don't contrast that well with each other, so it's almost like I used the same color. I will rectify this eventually. I'm going to repaint the accent walls a darker shade of gray. I just haven't done it yet. I've had other projects going on. So just like every other window in the house, these got new window treatments. I actually just about 2 weeks ago I took the vertical blinds down and I put up this curtain rod. And I got these nice gray, kind of retro patterned fabric curtains that match the sofa very well. I wanted to wait until we got new furniture to do the curtains because I wanted it to coordinate. The fireplace, I've had it cleaned once, and it actually operates just fine. It's safe to use. I've cleaned the firebox many times, but it's just a pain in the ass to keep it clean. Every time you have a fire, it gets dirty again. I put in all new heating vents. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I replaced all the return and supply vents because the original ones were far too restrictive. They were a very narrow slat design, and I felt that they were providing too much restriction and airflow. So I put in modern ones. I didn't want to do that, but I did what I had to do. So that's the living room. Not really a lot of changes. Again, like I mentioned before, though, all new outlets, all new switches and plates and everything. So I really am not a big fan of the 1950s switch plate covers. I just don't like the look. So here's my bedroom. This is the master bedroom. It's a 19 by 14 room. It's pretty good size. The house is starting to smell nice again. Original light fixture. I'm going to keep as much of this old stuff in place as I can within reason. That's my plan. Nice neighbors. I've actually met some of them, or one of them. But check out this house right here. It's a very, very nice mid-century modern home. There's three of them in a row. A lot of nice mid-century modern homes. I'll have to do a tour of the neighborhood when the weather's nicer. Master closet, walk-in. I guess you call this a walk-in? No, it's not a walk-in. It's just a regular closet with a laundry chute. It goes straight into the basement. And I think that's where the laundry machines would go. This is steel lined. So I imagine this was installed when the house was built. You can see some of the original lead paint. This house is a treasure trove of lead paint. If you need lead paint, I've got it. You need asbestos, I'm your guy. All original light switch covers. Now, most of the bulbs are blown. Oh wait, that's the closet, I think, and yeah, both of those are blown because why not? And here's the master bedroom 1 year later. Not a lot of changes. New paint on the walls. I went with a two-tone cream taupe beige. The end walls are slightly darker than the side walls. But like the living room, the color contrast wasn't really all that great, and it does take a little bit of, it may take a double take before you realize the color is a little different. This room here just went through a slight kind of refresh. Removed the original light fixture and replaced it with a nice ceiling fan with a brushed nickel finish and a wireless kit added to that so I can control it with this remote. Windows repaired, new window locks, as I did with all the other windows in the house. These are the clamp style locks. They do a nicer job of clamping the parting bead together. New window treatments. One thing I changed that you might not have noticed unless I pointed it out to you, the door pockets, the handle pockets I replaced with a brushed nickel finish. The brass ones are starting to flake and delaminate, so I decided to just take them out and put these in. I actually had to chisel the pockets open a little bit more. The finger pulls, that's what they're called, the finger pulls. I had to chisel the pockets out a little more for these to fit because the newer ones are a little bigger than the originals. I won't be showing the second bedroom in this video because my girlfriend uses that as a dressing room and a place to store a bunch of her stuff that she had at her mother's house. We won't be showing that room. But this is it for the master bedroom. Check out this Rittenhouse doorbell. It works, but it only goes ding, it doesn't go dong. So I think the problem is the plungers are probably seized, but I can fix that, no big deal. Let's take a look at this super retro bathroom. I'm gonna keep the tile. I'm gonna keep the pink tile because you know what? It works. It's in good shape. There's not one missing tile, not one cracked tile. All the what do they call these, glued in pieces, these are all intact. And the vanity mirror, oh man, look at this. It actually works, but I have to, I'm gonna get new bulbs and new starters for it, but it works. And inside, you've got, anyone who's ever owned a home from this time period, what do you think that is? That's your razor drop. This wall is filled with razors, or blades. How do you like that? It's got a spring-loaded stop on it so you don't hit the wall. I think with a little bit of WD-40 and steel wool, I can polish this right up. It'll look really nice. So I'm going to keep what I can and get rid of what I can't. But everything works in the house so far, except for the garbage disposal. Nice iron tub. And I got to get a freaking shower head. I'm going to put in a water saver shower head. I don't like those. Those suck. And maybe replace these curtain rod things. This has got to go. That's got to go today. Got some closets in here. Nice wall, a full-length mirror in there. And there is a GFI outlet for some reason in the closet. I imagine that'd be a good place to put a shaver. So, walking into the bathroom 1 year later, let's see how it compares. So there has been a few changes in here. Notably, new curtains, new color scheme. So the walls, I repainted them bright white. I painted the trim light gray, and I've picked out accessories and fixtures to kind of match that theme. So the idea here was to preserve as much as I possibly could because I really wanted to keep this bathroom stuck in the time period that it was built. Now, for those of you who are history buffs, Mammy Eisenhower is the one who made the pink bathroom tiles popular, or pink in general in the home, a popular color choice, in 1954, when the house was actually built. So I decided that it was really a good idea to leave it intact and let the next owner worry about ripping it out. I'm not doing it. I can't take myself to do that. So the best thing to do here is to find colors that work with pink and black And that just happens to be bright metallic finishes, white, grays, chromes. It really does work, in my humble opinion, and I think I remain unanimous in that. But so the one major project I did here was I tore the whole floor out, all the way down to the subfloor. So there was a 3/4 inch underlayment. So we had a subfloor, a 3/4 inch underlayment, 9x9 tile, which was possibly asbestos. I never had it tested, but I assume it was. And then we had a rolled vinyl floor on top of that from the 90s. And what that turned into was just it was a rotting mess. So I had to tear everything out down to the subfloor. The subfloor was still solid. So I put down a new underlayment, and I put down this 12-inch vinyl composite tile. I wanted it to be sympathetic to the era. I decided not to go with the ceramic tile because I really am not a big fan of ceramic tile in this setting. I just don't think it would work well. But those are the major repairs I did here. I also had to replumb the sink, new drain plumbing, new faucet. Did all that. My dad actually did the drain for me, and I think he did a beautiful job. I had to replace all the water valves, all 3 of them. They were all original and they were all leaking. I put in a brand new toilet when I did the floor because the one that was here was the lowest grade. The one you put in the apartment that you're renting for the cheapest amount of money possible in the market. That's the kind of toilet they had in here, so I put a slightly better one in. But yeah, new shower curtain support rings. And I also replumbed the bathtub drain and replaced the faucet. And I recaulked the bathtub walls. Beyond that, really didn't do a whole hell of a lot in here. I even found a 1950s scale. From what I can tell, that dates to about the mid-50s. And it works pretty well, actually. This is the bathroom. I did put in a new light fixture and a fan combo. I tore the old one out. I don't know how the old one worked. It was a fire hazard, and it was just gross. So I took that out, put a new one in. I got to clean this one now. It's starting to get really dusty. Now the light fixture, I took this apart, replaced some wiring that wasn't safe. I put in new starters and new bulbs. It fires right up. So I also refinished the chrome. The chrome was starting to rust, so I refinished it with a metallic satin finish paint. It's like an aluminum paint, and it's holding up really well. I did that back in February, and it still looks good. So I think I did all right there. I was able to salvage the chrome ring on the mirror, but that's about it. But you can make polarizing features. You can make them work, and I haven't. This pink tile is something that I was skeptical about at first, but it's really grown on me. It really is. I don't hate it, and I think that if it looks good, most people will acknowledge that it's retro and appreciate it for that. I mean, you would never put this in a new house, but at the time this house was built, this was what was popular. And the 1950s is a time period that people seem to go back to. When modern fashions run out of steam, it seems like the de facto choice for the next step is the mid-century period. I don't know why that is. Just a timeless generation, I guess. Timeless period. Now, as for this tile here, so this wall was bulging all the way down. I took the tiles off, and I found that some water had gotten into the plaster. This is a plaster wall. It's about that thick. You've got drywall and then plaster on top of it. It was a very popular wall choice for the time. It was very expensive, but it was and very labor intensive, but that's what they did here. And I found that the plaster layer was disintegrating, and that's why the tiles are popping. So I took the tiles off, I scraped the plaster off, and just this section, and I reset the tiles on a thick bed of liquid nails. And when that dried and shrank, it brought the tiles in. That was a temporary fix. I am going to redo this wall. I'm going to pull the tiles off very carefully. I just have to get the energy to do this because it's a very labor and time consuming job. But I've got to pull the tiles off, and I'm going to tear the plaster down. From this point down, I'm going to redo the whole wall. I'm going to try to save this point up because I don't want to get into a lot of plaster repair work. It's just not what I want to do. And then I'm going to just put some hardy backer down, and then I'm going to reset the tiles in the hardy backer. That's my plan. But for now, it's fine. And these are mortar set towel bar supports. These are an art form to get them in right. I'd like to find 2 replacement tiles and just delete this bar altogether and then put a regular towel bar in its place, one that surface mounts. That's what I'm thinking. But I'd have to find 2 matching tiles. That's going to be hard because getting this exact shade of pink is not going to happen. So I've got to really explore my options there. So anyway, that's the bathroom, and so far so good. I just waxed this floor, and I don't think it's fully dry yet. I got my slipper prints in there. Oops. Pretty sizable for me anyway. And we'll take a look at that in a minute. But this is where the laundry room will be. I'm going to finish this off at some point, and this will be an enclosed laundry room. We've got a laundry sink and a lovely ungrounded outlet for the washing machine, you cheap pricks. Here's a fairly new dryer outlet there. This is the old cement laundry sink, which I don't know what I'm going to do with. But everything looks to be in pretty good shape down here. We're under the bathtub right now, and looks like everything seems to be on the up and up. No leaks that I can tell. A lot of cobwebs. There was a leak here at one point, which was apparently fixed, but the floor isn't totally rotted. Even if it is, it's not that big of an area. I got to put in new fire alarms. I have those upstairs. I just put in some new light bulbs down here because they were all burned out, naturally. And here is where the water meter is. And this is, according to the inspector, was part of a perimeter drain system. And 1 year later, this is the drain cover. Made the frame out of pressure treated lumber. The cover is made of scrap 3/4 inch plywood, and I lined the pit with crushed gravel, and I've got the hose from the dehumidifier running into that drain port. And there you go. This works pretty well. And I actually painted it with some leftover Battleship Gray Alkylid based paint that was included in the house. The can was dated 1988, but yet it worked just fine. So there we go. And strong as an ox. 1 year later, let's take a look at the basement. Before we do, I'm going to show you a few things that I did in the backyard. So I have been working constantly on getting this yard back to life. Right now it's late fall, early winter, so the grass isn't green, but it has been looking pretty good. I've seeded this lawn a few times. I've added a couple of passes of lime, and it's coming to life. It really is. Looking pretty good in some spots that I was really worried about. In the back of the house, we've got new shutters. Again, all windows have been repaired. I added 2 exterior light fixtures, one of them above the basement door. And these are a motion light. They're LED motion lights. I added one here. And I added one on the back of the garage. The other thing I did to the back doors is I repaired both the garage door and the basement door. Took the door off the hinges and made whatever necessary repairs were needed. It's a little dirty right now from the dirt splashing up on it from the yard, but the door frames were completely rebuilt. This one I just replaced all the exterior trim and the threshold and added a deadbolt and a new doorknob. But I made this threshold on my table saw. Came out pretty good. All the trim that I used on the exterior, I'm doing this anywhere I need to put trim. What I'm doing is I'm using a PVC product. It's called Veranda PVC trim. It'll never rot, split, crack, shrink, or ever need painting. It's permanent. It is basically as permanent as vinyl siding. Could use a good wash right now, but again, we're not there yet. Put in some new bricks for the step. There was actually a tree growing here, and I'd mow it over, and then it would come back, and I'd mow it over. So, no more tree. You'll also notice the absence of awnings over the windows. I took the awnings off. That was one of the first things I did. When the roofer came to do the roof, I had him take the awnings down while he was there. And you scrap them for aluminum. There was a big, like an 11-foot awning right here. That is now gone. I hate awnings. They're just stupid. I had to replace a sillcock back here. This is a frost-free sillcock. The one that was on here originally was original, and it was not a frost-free. So these are designed to, for example, if the hose is still hooked up and there's water in the lines, rather than freezing and cracking the valve, what it'll do is it'll pop this freeze plug out, and you just replace the freeze plug when the time comes. Turn it back on again. So this door here, again, this entire door frame had to be taken out all the way to the concrete. So this was just one big opening, and I had to rebuild it from the inside out. I was loading some furniture down here, and I got to touch that up before the winter hits. But I gotta do that. So yeah, new door frame. This is all PVC vinyl. As we come into the basement, I've actually gone and poured concrete on either side of the threshold to fill it in, because when the house was built, they ran the door frame all the way to grade, and what that was doing is it was inviting moisture and boring insects to turn the wood into their own home. So yeah, that had to go. So it's all been replaced with pressure treated lumber. PVC is permanent. I think it'll last a long time. The door itself was in remarkably good condition. I shaved a little bit off the bottom of the door to make it fit the new opening. I shrunk the opening just a little bit when I put it all together. Because remember, there was no threshold here before. There was no proper threshold on the door frame. So now there is. So there you go. And here's the basement. So we've got a brand new oil tank, a brand new furnace, and some various plumbing repairs that I've had to do, like that sillcock. There's a new pipe that goes to that. Did some wiring down here. I replaced the wire, or the branch wire that feeds the furnace circuit. I rewired all the lights down here so that they all come on and off with a switch, with the exception of these two. I left these constantly powered with pull chains. So these can be turned on independently of the other basement lights. But that fluorescent light, or that it's an LED light bar, the same one that's in the garage, that's powered off with the switch, as is that light, and the ones you see that are on except for that one. Yeah. So that is That was a much needed upgrade. We did not have enough lighting down here in the basement. It just was totally inadequate for that. Now, the room that underwent probably the most obvious transformation is this room here. This was built as a spare bedroom. I don't know what they use this for, but it was trashed. It was absolutely trashed when I bought the house. And let's take a look. So we've got a new door frame. They had the door that divided the kitchen and the dining area. They took it off the hinges and they took it off the door frame, and they mounted the hinges to the outside of this stud right here. It was janky AF. The door didn't close correctly. It didn't latch. It just was sort of there for God knows what reason. Let's see how it looks now. This is a slab door. I bought it pre-hung. Forgot to mention that. A pre-hung slab door, and I cut it down to the right height. It was too tall. But this is a very non-standard height door or opening, so I had to cut it about 4 inches off of it. Let's see what it looks like inside. I gotta move that table. And here it is. This is the computer museum, my office, my getaway from it all, when I want to get away from it all. This is where I do my live feeds. It's not clean right now. It's kind of a mess. But I'm working on it. We just have a lot of projects going on between her and I right now. We're just doing a lot of things for holiday stuff and whatnot. But this is it. So starting off from the ceiling, most people are removing popcorn ceilings, but there's actually a purpose for this style ceiling. Number one, it helps for acoustic purposes. When I'm on a live feed, I don't want my voice echoing off a smooth ceiling. So you use a popcorn ceiling, which helps to prevent that. It also hides imperfections. The reason popcorn ceilings are used in many residential construction projects and homes is because they're the easiest to install. You don't have to do a proper finished smooth ceiling. A smooth ceiling takes a lot of labor to get right. Popcorn ceilings, it makes it so much easier. You just do your rough taping and mudding, and you just spray this stuff on, and you're done. With a smooth ceiling, you have to really sand it well, then go back and touch it up, and then sand it again, and then prime it, then paint it. This is more of a one-stop shop, one-step project. So you'll find that popcorn ceilings to this very day are common in the manufactured housing industry, mobile homes, double wides, and I believe modulars. For that reason, it saves labor. But people don't like it. Well, I think it's fine. I would never do this in the rest of the house, but for this room it works. So I did that to the ceiling to get rid of all the imperfections and gouges and whatnot. It was a mess. I painted the walls with a texturizing sand mixed in with the paint. I used leftover living room gray for these walls here. And then I went out and I spent $9 on a can of mist-tinted paint from Home Depot. I really found the color to be spot on. It's a steel blue. And I used that on these walls here. I trimmed out the inside of this room with just pine boards, cotton painted. Also the door trim as well. And really happy with how it came out. I had to replace all the plugs and switches in here because they were installed incorrectly and damaged. Most of them were damaged. I found a very unsafe termination on this plug over here, which I fixed. Nearly set the room on fire when I energized the circuit after I bought the place, because the light fixtures that they had were shorting out because they stripped off too much insulation. So I bought these light fixtures. I got these on clearance for like $12 a piece. They're actually quite expensive fixtures at the full price. So I bought them dirt cheap at Lowe's, and they're a nice brushed metal finish. And they use a weird candelabra style base that I've never seen before. But anyway, that's what I've got for light fixtures, and they really do the job. The shelving, I added some shelving in here. I bought some new shelving brackets, and I went with the this weathered gray shelving. Now, like the garage shelving, I did notice very early on that these shelves are they warp very easily. Just so you guys know, I mean, there are better choices in shelving material than what they sell you for shelving. It's just, the stuff is just, it warps so easily. But it seems to be holding up okay. The carpeting, this is actually peel and stick carpet squares. These are made by Foss, and they're mold resistant, mildew resistant. They're great for basements, and they stick really well. I just cleaned the concrete as best I could, stuck these down, cut them to size, boom. It was just boom, done, easy peasy. And they've held up. I think I put this floor down in the springtime. So that's about when I started working on this room. I think it was early spring, late winter. And so far everything is held up just fine. I actually got these tiles on clearance. There was an open box discount on one of them, so I didn't pay full price. And I have a few left over. The nice thing about these is if you do ruin a tile, you just pull it up and pop in another one. So make sure you buy extras. If you ever decide to put down carpet squares, buy extra squares, because you may not be able to buy these in the same color, down the road. So, in fact, these are 3 different boxes, 2 different lots. So there is a color variance between these. So I used that to my advantage. I started scattering. I laid them out, and I pieced the. I tried to alternate, the coloration a little bit to give it some variety. And you put these down. You can put them in the same direction, or you can alternate them. And I alternated them so the grain alternates between the tiles. It's a brilliant idea, and it works so well. I vacuumed this floor many times with a Kirby, no less, and I have had no issues with tiles lifting or anything like that. So I'm very pleased.